Okay, so I just got back from the ironing board, and what I need to do is I first need to seam my pieces at the shoulder seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay my pattern pieces as they were, and if you haven't already notched out your notches, it might be a good idea to do so just so you can make sure that you have the correct ends because these pieces are so small. So you can kind of see that I have 2 notches here on this piece. I'm going to set my facing patterns to the side. And I have 2 notches on this piece. And so what I need to do is I need to match up those notches. Double check that I have the right end. Okay, and then I'm going to place with right sides together those notches, and then I'm going to seam up this shoulder seam here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple pins to keep everything in place. And I'm going to do a quick back tack at the front and end of this seam, and I'm going to seam it at 5/8 inch. Because that's what my pattern has indicated that I need to stitch at. So again, make sure that your sewing machine is set at a straight stitch at our regular 2.5 stitch length. And it doesn't matter which side you sew on. I just felt like it was easier for me to see the 5/8 inch marking if I sew from this way. So it doesn't matter as long as you're lining up that raw edge with that 5/8 inch marking. So I'm going to go ahead and lower my needle, do a quick back tack. I don't think my presser foot was down all the way. It was kind of jumping around. And then I'm just going to go ahead and seam this closed. And then do a quick back tack at the end here. Alright, and raise that up and trim all my thread tails. Okay. Alright, so then what I have when I go ahead and open up that seam is I have a facing unit that contains both the front of the neckline as well as the back, meeting at the shoulder seam here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a quick finger press to keep that open, and then I'm going to put a couple pins in along the outside edge to just hold those seam allowances in place. So again, this is along the outside edge of the curve, because what we now need to do is we need to put a row of edge finishing on, just to kind of dust off our memory from different edge finishes. As you can serge, you can do a row of stitching, you can do a turn-in stitch, you can do a zigzag. One of my favorites is to do a row of stitching and then pinking because it's just fast. And I don't have my pinking shears at home. I really need to get a second pair. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put a row of stitching in, and then when I'm back at school tomorrow, I'm just going to go ahead and pink the edge of this here. So I'm just going to run my my presser foot right along this outside edge to put that row of straight stitching in. I'm not going to worry about back stitching. I'm just going to go ahead and put this row in here all along this outside edge, and as you can see, I'm manipulating my sample and turning it all at once so that my presser foot keeps along the outside edge here. And as I get to the front, I'm not going to worry about back stitching. Just going to go ahead and run that off there, and then go ahead and trim my thread tails. Alright, and again, what you want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and do a row of pinking with your pinking shears right along this outside edge. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and assemble our bodice at the shoulder seam as well. So I'm going to set my my facing unit that I've constructed off to the side. Alright, now what I'm going to do is this is my bodice front and this is my bodice back. I know that it's the bodice back because it has this extension of 5/8 inch extension on the center back line. And we put that in so that we can practice finishing a facing when there might be a centered opening. So in this sample we have a center back opening. Most likely for your fitted bodices you'll have a center front opening, but it gives us practice with how do we properly and put things in and construct things in the correct order so that everything is finished. So if we were to have a zipper along the center back, what would be our order of operations that we would need to stitch so that everything is truly enclosed? So that just will give us an example and give us some practice for how to go about stitching that in place. So first thing that we need to do is we need to seam our sample at the shoulder here. So we're going to seam our bodice by placing right sides together. And you'll probably notice that I have a couple threads here, and that's because I didn't pay attention when I was stitching this the first time. So I had to come back and redo it. So make sure that you have your right sides together. And then we're going to line up this raw edge here with the 5/8 inch marking. Go ahead and lower your needle in, and then do a quick back tack at the front and end of this seam. Again, making sure that we have that raw edge running right alongside of that 5/8 inch seam allowance line. Okay, I'm doing another back tack there. Raise everything up and trim our thread tails. Okay. Now what we need to do is we then need to press this seam open too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video, and I'm going to go ahead and press this seam open with the iron, and I'm going to take my sample, my facing sample, just to give that a good final press before we come back in and place with right sides together our facing along the inside of our neckline. So not too much more to do on this, but it's always important to take the time to press to reduce that excess bulk that might get pushed to one side when we do our neck seam. So we'll pick this up here in a moment.